Today, I want to take you guys on a little reading session. A session to understand about what kind of book that Hyunjin from Stray Kids actually read. Because apparently, my guy reads a lot. One day I found out that Hyunjin from Stray Kids likes to read, which is not like a really groundbreaking things because a lot of artists and singers also like to recommend books that they like, but his recommendation is weirdly interesting. So I picked up one of his books thinking I'll read a couple pages. Next thing I know, I was 200 pages in. And that's when I thought, wait, this man actually has a good taste in books? So naturally, I had to investigate. I did some research about books that Hyunjin actually have recommended. Turns out there's an actual Goodreads shelf dedicated for this man. Bless the fan that actually made this specific shelf because it made my life way more easier. Or so I thought. I kind of forgot to cross-reference his recommendation. Basically, I only used that shelf as my main guideline on things that he ever recommended, but I haven't done like a proper like cross-reference or anything if I missed it to myself. So I would like to apologize about that in advance. I have 4 books in total. One is an audiobook. At first I was thinking to read more, but in this economy, unfortunately my bank account is kind, so we are settling with 4 different books. One is in an audiobook. A quick information, and this is like my formal application. I was never into K-pop until lately, mainly because girl had a breakup and we are going through economic crisis right now and I need something to help me to stay sane. A new hyperfixation, although I'm not really sure about that, saying how horrible our economy right now. Other than that, I'm actually very curious about his recommendation, and let's just start this video with one of the most popular, more like it's been recommended over and over again by many artists and idols. It's Almond by Won Byung Song. I've heard about this book and I know this book has been recommended multiple times by other idols. In this book, we follow our main character named Hyunjin. Hyunjin is a teenager and he suffered from a medical condition called alexithymia. It is an inability to identify and express one's feeling. It is a mental disorder described in the medical journal in 1970s. Despite his medical condition, like his life is still very much quite normal as it can be, until tragedy happened. Hyunjin doesn't know how to cope with that specific tragedy, so he chose like a silent isolation. The tragedy happened right before he entered high school, and when he entered high school, he met a friend named Gon. And Gon is like the exact opposite of Hyunjin. It's very coming of age. It talks about teenagers and their emotions and their relationships. Hyunjin characters, like he suffered from a medical condition, right? This is like me interpreting it like in many ways like a criticism against like the social pressure that teenagers experience. Honestly speaking, it is an actual problem in society, not only in South Korea but like anywhere in the world. As an adult right now, as someone in their mid-20s, I can confidently say that like teenagers' emotion and identity and self-esteem is very vulnerable, but at the same time like people like to kind of like just swipe their emotions like under the rug. As you were reading this book, you can see that he was trying his best to feel emotion, to follow social cue, but he just like have a difficulty to be normal. Meanwhile, his friend Gon feels everything, a troubled teenager, and he is very much like entitled over his emotion and his past. At first, Gon doesn't like Hyunjin because of the thing that Hyunjin did. Even though the friendship started very rough, like they both still want to get to know each other, so they became friends, even though they had a beef earlier in their friendship. And the rest of the book, we basically follow Hyunjin and Gon and like their struggle, their issues and trauma, and how they deal with their identity and sense of belonging. Now, I know this book is very popular in South Korea, and I understand why this book sold 1 million copies worldwide. So yes, a very, very well written book. I don't know how to end this section other than saying like, thank you Hyunjin for making me to read this book. Again, I've been wanting to read this book for years already at this point, and I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it. Now for the next book specifically, again, it is another book that is widely popular in South Korea. Not only in South Korea, like it is very popular worldwide. It is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Baek Se-hee. I am almost done with this audiobook, so I'm going to listen to this while I build my Lego, and I'm going to let voiceover Audrey to narrate the whole thing. The book is essentially a recorded conversation between the author and the psychiatrist. She documents her therapy session, and each chapter is a transcript of those conversations. What I found most profound about this book is how verbal and transparent it feels. This is probably the closest thing you can get to seeing a real therapy session unfold. Of course, it is still a curated publication, but it feels very intimate and honest. Overall, this book gave me insight into depression, emotional struggle, without exposing too much about myself. Some of the discussion in this book go very deep, and I found myself reflecting a lot while reading. At times, the writing can feel a little repetitive, but honestly, it was not a huge issue for me. One thing that this book did right, like it reminds me that I need to schedule for another therapy appointment. The thing is, like, the conversation about mental health, it's like still like a very taboo thing, not only in South Korea, to be fair, like even in Asian country, like we don't really talk about mental health. In fact, like it's still like something that we see as a bad thing, like the stigma around it is still pretty bad. I need to fix my lighting a little bit. Even for me in the beginning, I don't want to go to therapy because I was like, what's the point of that? Even though like I was very much well educated when it comes to mental health. What the author wrote on this book, it's like probably the most vulnerable and transparent therapy session that you will ever see in the form of writing. It gives the reader kind of like a glimpse on how it looks like for a therapy session or like that. I hope this book can encourage someone to seek for a professional help if they need it. Now, for the next book that I'm going to read, okay, I have to be honest on this one. I've actually read this book in December. The reason I was reading this book because I specifically looking for a book about women's infantilization and feminist rage. Immediately, this book was like the first thing that it was recommended by the internet, and I feel that I have to specifically talk about this book on this video. The book is Vegetarian by Han Kang. Vegetarian by Han Kang follows our main character, a female protagonist, who suddenly stopped eating meat. One day her husband came home and then he found his wife like throwing all the meats away from their fridge, and when the husband asked her like, is there any reason why she doesn't want to eat meat suddenly, she replied with that she had a very visceral, grotesque, disturbing dream about eating meat. That's why she decided she wants to be a vegetarian. The way her husband described her, in fact, like on the earlier pages, like the husband said that like, well, she's very timid, she's very quiet, that's the exact reason why I married her. Obviously, her husband and the protagonist's family are not very happy with her sudden decision not wanting to eat meat. They see this decision as like something very selfish, where at some point they literally like force feed her eating the meat. Her family and her husband kind of agree that like she is not right in her head, like she cannot take care of her own self. Now the book itself is welcome for like many different interpretations, but I think a lot of people agree that like her reason not wanting to eat meat is some way it's her way to kind of like rebel against her family control. It's her way to gain just a slight autonomy in her life, and you can tell that our female protagonist was being infantilized. The book is like a combination of like psychological horror, a little bit of body horror. Again, this book was like only 200 pages, not even, I think. It took me 4 days, mainly because like how disturbing everything was, like especially the way they describe her, especially the way they objectifying our main protagonist. What I found specifically quite disturbing about this book is the way it was written. Basically, the book is split between like 3 chapters, and each chapter is from different POVs. When I was reading it, I kind of had like a thought, why we don't see things from her perspective? The only time we can read her own perspective was like when she is describing about her very disturbing and grotesque dream. Other than that, her story is being told by people around her. And when I had the realization, I was kind of like, that's fucked up. Some of these POVs are very disturbing, very unreliable, in many ways kind of like objectifying her. And I had that realization like 3 months after I finished the book, because like even though like I finished this book like in December, I keep thinking about it. Even in her own book, she doesn't have a power to tell her own story from her own POVs. That's a genius in writing. Damn, this is like one of the books that left like a long-lasting impression on me. Again, I finished this book like 6 months ago, but I still think about it until now. So for the last book in this video, it is another psychological horror book by South Korean author. Although I just want to say that I forgot to cross-reference this book specifically, so I am not sure if Hyunjin actually have read it or not. But the book itself called Hunger by Choi Jin Young. At first, I was curious about this book because there's a cannibalism in it. I swear I'm not psychotic. The story follows a couple, however, the guy passes away, and the woman, while grieving the loss of her partner, decided to eat him. Which is honestly the extreme version of in sickness and health that I ever seen. Yes, this relationship is incredibly obsessive and deeply codependent, and honestly, I absolutely love it. How do I explain about this book? The thing is, like, East Asian literature always have like a special place in my heart. So I expect this book is going to be unhinged. I don't expect this book is going to be sad. The girl and the guy, they experience like tragedy in their life. Both of them with their own emotional baggage and their own trauma kind of had like this realization of you are the only person that can understand me, and that's why they form like a very codependent, obsessive, romantic relationship. The reason why I was kind of sad about this book, it talks about like some people just born in tragedy. What I'm trying to say, the guy was suffering from their parents' debt, and then now he needs to carry his parents' burden. He was working double jobs since he was in high school, and even as an adult, like he still needs to pay for his parents' debt. Like it never ends. The loan shark is constantly chasing him. Kind of tells you that like, yeah, sometimes life just sucks. Sometimes you were born in tragedy and there's nothing you can do about it. Like because sometimes like no matter how much you work, no matter how much you try your best in your life just sucks. Especially if you were born in tragedy without any privilege, then you just kind of have to suffer. Again, I'm not sure if Hyunjin read this book. I just saw this on the Goodreads shelf. I forgot to cross-reference it. But the fact that he enjoyed Hong Kong, and I believe for people who like Hong Kong will also enjoy this book.
Panas banget ya ampun hari ini, astaga.
I have two dogs, so if you can hear all the barking, let's just keep that as an ambiance. I got myself Cruel Prince and Stephen King's book. This one is for my next video about reading romantasy, because guess what? I never read romantasy ever in my whole life. So I'm just like curious what's the hype about, and one of the contender is Cruel Prince, which I've heard mixed review about it, but I'm very much excited for this one. And Pet Sematary by Stephen King, from what I heard, like this is like his scariest book ever. I never read Stephen King before, so I don't know if this is like a good book to read as a first-time reader. But girl needs some horror in her life right now, so we're gonna read that. Anyway, that's the whole reading vlog, and I just want to sit here to kind of like debrief with you guys a little bit before I end the video. So far, I'm enjoying it, but if I'm being honest, his reading list, the one that I've seen online, is pretty much quite similar to mine. Again, half of the book that I read for this specific video, it's either I've read it before, like last year, like Vegetarian by Hong Kong, or like books that I've been wanting to read for quite a while. I just never had a chance to do so. I'm doing this because I was curious about like his reading days, but at the same time, basically I'm just like completing my own TBR. All I want to say, my TBR looks quite similar with Hyunjin's taste in book, and I gotta say, he does have a good taste. That's the standard for men, by the way. What's the word for that? Like, sorry, I got text messages. Me and my friend, like, so three of us collectively are returning to AO3. Funny enough, like three of us are not even from the same fandom. So three of us collectively have been reading AO3 a lot for the last couple of weeks. But every time we found a new fanfiction, we just like message each other saying that like, please go read this fanfiction. It's always the fanfiction author that just made me swoon, man. Anyway, my favorite so far is Vegetarian and Hunger. Again, I finished Vegetarian like in December, but I keep thinking about it months after finishing it. As for Hunger, I do like story about obsession, codependent relationship, slightly unhinged story. I swear I'm not a psychopath, but like I do like cannibalism as a metaphor of like very obsessive behavior. Anyway, that's the end of this video. I know this video is like slightly different from my usual videos. Honestly, I've been wanting to talk about books and things that I like for quite a while already. But honestly, I had such a good time filming and planning this video. I was very excited to talk about stuff that I'm very much interested. So I will be continuing on making things like this in the future, and I hope you guys enjoy that. Once again, my formal application to become a K-pop stan in 2026. Jesus Christ. Listen, inflation is so bad to the point that I need a new hyperfixation in my life to help me to stay sane. That's the video. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Bye bye.